Greetings, everyone. This is Ayman Tarbishi, President and CEO of the International Council for Small Business, and this is an ICSB webinar. As well, then we will also turn this webinar into an ICSB Imagine podcast. So we're doing dual recording here. So I'm delighted to have Dr. Hartmut Meyer here, Professor of Business Administration and Entrepreneurship at FOM in Germany. The title of the session today is War and Entrepreneurship, the Europe Experience. And Dr. Hartmut, it's a pleasure to have you here today with us. Here, even though the topic is not as nice as we want to be talking about here, but there is a lot of research implications to the war currently happening in Europe and looking at it from many different perspectives here. We recently published an article on this. But before we get into the article, before we get into the points here, I wanted to first warmly welcome you here to our ICSB webinar and Imagine podcast here. So welcome. Dr. Hartmut, why don't we go ahead and start? You have some welcoming remarks to make, and then maybe if you would like to share your PowerPoint presentation, and then we can have a discussion after that. So please go ahead.
Thank you very much indeed, and I hope everyone can understand you. First of all, a very warm welcome from Germany. Here I'm just situated today in Dresden, one of the cities which suffered most in the Second World War and has been rebuilt more or less completely. Also, warm welcome to all the people listening now the live stream on Facebook worldwide. I hope you're doing all well and feeling well. Yeah. So let's start directly into my topic. The topic is we were aiming and we agreed on this war and entrepreneurship. So what is this relationship? What has it to do? Yeah, how war influence entrepreneurship in a positive or negative way? Yeah, what will be our future? What will be the future like? Yeah. Like to introduce myself a little bit. Okay, I have a couple of academic degrees. The main thing is, okay, I'm a researcher and lecturer at the FOM, but I'm also a board member at the Management Consultancy Association here for small and medium-sized companies as well. Okay, in the Offensive Mittelstand, which is just by the state run an initiative to support SMEs and entrepreneurship, and with particular reference also to the hotel and catering industry in Germany. Yeah, my research interest is certainly responsible entrepreneurship. I'm very much into tourism and entrepreneurship in innovation-driven countries. This is just for a quick brief of my person. So we want to talk today about the current situation, the effects of the war to the economy. And I would like to give you a small European historical view, because we are just entering here a topic and a relationship which has not received very much attention in the literature and research. Then, okay, I want to talk a little bit about the current entrepreneurial developments here in Germany or Europe, and certainly in the end, we want to talk about the consequences for the Ukraine and the future of entrepreneurship. And afterwards, I'm just happy for your questions. Yeah. Well, on the 24th of February, we woke up in a new world. This was our Mrs. Baerbock, our foreign secretary, announced it and woke up Germany with this message. A 21st century dream ended over everlasting peace, and we regarded always our European Union also as a model for everlasting peace. Yeah, we find that our economic order is changing. That's what is we just, and maybe we redefine. So what are the relationships between the US, China, Russia, and Europe? And particularly also here are questions, what happened to developing countries? We are currently not talking any longer about them. Yeah, we have a high, we perceive, and that's what my daily talks with consultants and also manager, it's uncertainty due to the political and economic bans. What happened to marketplaces? Yes, we all here, in particular in Europe, were just astonished how we were made ourselves dependent on gas, on raw materials from Russia, as this was never really announced and it was never really communicated to this one here. And so this relationship fundamentally is threatening now our social welfare. And certainly, as I mentioned, and this was also the article from Eamon, this is just elected relationship with warm entrepreneurship. This is something we not really did not work in it. So let's talk a little bit about the current situation we having got here. We here in Europe and over the world, we just experienced that oil prices are going up tremendously. Yeah, Russia was one of the biggest producers of oil. Petrol prices go up to 75%, and households has massive consequences. Transportation sector is just prices just going up extremely. Yes, we're just paying now for a liter of petrol almost about 2.40 euros. It went up just crazy. Also food, yeah. Russia and Ukraine is producing 30% of the world consumption of grain, including also vegetable oil, yeah. And the breakdown of world food markets will also cause, according to the navigation, also starvation, yeah. According to the UN, yeah, people who are suffering hunger will raise from 8 to 13 million people, yeah. Copper, nickel, aluminium, yeah, Russia is just the biggest supplier. We expect shortages, and this is just for our machine industry, automotive industry, will be high with big consequences, yeah. In the financial sector, yeah, about more than 300 billion US dollars, yeah, are frozen with Western Bank, yeah. So there are, it's at least here, you can see it in the newspaper, yeah, that Russia will face perhaps a national bankruptcy with also high applications to Western banks and investors, yeah. And currently, okay, also reserves, currency reserves with banks are more or less valueless because the ruble just dropped down tremendously. Supply chains are interrupted due to missing raw materials and as well redirected trade channels, yeah. We just fire as well expropriations. So for example, property, enterprise property like Volkswagen, Mercedes-Benz, maybe IKEA or McDonald's will be taken by the Russian state, yeah? So there will be huge losses of fortune. And certainly we find here as well that economic growth has been reduced, at least in Germany, by 1.3. Now we were expecting up to 3 to 4% of economic growth, yeah? Also the engine of China will have these problems. By industry, yeah, the biggest one will be for us, and this is in Europe, in particular for Germany, a leading industry is the car industry, yeah. So a high number of spare parts are produced in the Ukraine, yeah. In addition to the chip problem, which we had already known via the COVID-19 pandemic, yeah. This is also construction. The prices raises up by 60% for wood and all other materials. Yes, the branch is fearing a lockdown due to missing investors. So far, the branch in the COVID-19 pandemic worked quite well. Yeah, but and they're working now still on a backlog of orders. But also these orders are based on prices prior to the war. So there will be expected huge losses in case they can't adjust the prices and fix prices for buildings. Yeah, the international tourism is at the moment the industry which is not suffering so much because due to the COVID-19, the internal or domestic tourism is still going well at the moment. But they still have been suffering still from the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic. Yeah. The war industry is maybe one of the winners, of course, for this of this war, because already in Germany, 100 billion bill passed now to boost up military machines. So for the future, it's also scheduled 2% of the national income. Sorry, I forgot this one. Transportation and chemistry, yeah, they are all dependent on energy, so they are very high energy consumptive industries, yeah, and maybe they will also face shortages in the energy supply. So also sometimes here I found that I just went a few days ago with a tiles company. They just filed for insolvency in order to get out of the old orders, yes, so that they're facing this one. This is also what is coming to entrepreneurial management, yeah, the way of uncertainty, and this is just now the poison at the moment in the system, yeah. They just, so all of a sudden, okay, solvency is one of the big issues, supply chains. All of a sudden, this was students' work and all the other research works is just indicating people start now to build up stocks because, okay, the cost of stocks are less than a breakdown of one production day. Normally, we were teaching here also in Germany just in time and everything, but this is not any longer on the agenda. Energy, certainly, contract management, how to get out of the contract. People are fearing to do now at the moment long-term contracts, yeah? What happened to globalization? Yeah, what happened to our to international trade relationships? Yes, we were just shifting already due to Brexit. So what is coming up? Also, it was quite surprising at the moment, as research do, that people and companies invest into training of the people in order to maintain at least their stuff. This is something which was quite surprising, actually. Yeah. The political consequences of the war is certainly finance. Yes, the state at the moment, in addition to the COVID-19 subsidies, which end more or less now here in Germany in March up to June, we are having subsidies to energy via we reduce VAT and other direct support, in particular to the transportation sector. Yeah. It has also other companies may face compensations due to the trade bans with Russia, yeah. And we're just fearing at the moment here inflation, raising interest rates due to a lack of investments. And in particular, inflation in rising interest rates will also become a problem for developing countries and maybe to pay back their international loans. Yes, so there also we have to fear here maybe some state bankruptcies. Yeah, on the human basis, certainly huge amounts are given now to the support of refugees here in Germany. Also direct human aid. Yeah. And a lot of money is now invested for the integration of refugees, for housing, healthcare, schooling facilities, and other measures to integrate them into the labor market. Yeah. Okay, I was just mentioning the energy. Yeah, so we want to reduce. That is now a big effort to buy other gas from other countries. Yeah, to shift it to the world market. Also shift to hydrogen, because here our Minister for Economic Affairs did some contracts with Qatar, and we have also now a very much boost and high demands for solar and wind energy and so on. So what happened as well as the globalization, trade bans to Russia and Russia-friendly countries, we will just come to this one. The ban to throw them out of the Swiss also means, okay, that we haven't received any investment. So for example, here we have also big Russian investor which just dropped out now of their engagements and just created some of the insolvencies, particularly in the north of Germany. Yeah, what is with the role of China? Yeah, because they just what will the play is this one here? This which is a very uncertain role to this one, and certainly we find here at the moment again protectionism and a redesign of trade patterns. Yeah. So if we just know these consequences at the moment here, we would just go down here and would like to find here War Entrepreneurship, a review. And if you see in the literature, yeah, the forces of war towards entrepreneurship are divided up in destructive and promoting forces. Certainly we know about the destructive forces, demoralization of commercial and private property, loss of financial property due to inflation, the human disasters, yeah, public finances means, okay, they're running into debts in order to boost up the economy, and certainly a complete loss of the infrastructure. The other promoting forces, which we just come in make clauses, are innovations. Also, wars are normally the engine for innovations, yeah? And so there are also not coming up investment opportunities due to the reconstruction. And we find here also redesign of business models with new technology. This particular happened, for example, in Germany after the Second World War. And there's also here knowledge exchanges due to new alliances. So research and so and just coming up, also sometimes taking also new investments to this one here. If you just see this one here, so you have got a historical review from a German perspective. Yeah, we find here at in the first play, okay, we had the Belle Epoque. This was the industrialization and the birth of entrepreneurship. Many authors we just know just were talking or put down their writings down to this epoch. Yeah, and this was the first period of globalization, certainly in forms of colonies still. Yeah, but we had these first period of globalization. The First World War from 14 to 18, yeah. So there we had the biggest innovations in chemistry, in the automotive industry, and electricity. This was the motor which later on we used also for private investments and civil investment. And we found here again the end of globalization, protectionism, and the loss of colonies as well. Okay, in the end, loss of other political systems, because all monarchies or most monarchies in Europe were just came to an end after the First World War. Between the two world wars, we had a period of economic growth, but also chaos. Yes, first of all, very intensive internal activities here in Europe due to the commercial use of innovations which came out of the First World War. We had also the economy was suffering because the reconstruction of the political power and high demands for repair payments. For example, here in Germany, it was done with coal. Yeah, so there was money highly missing because it went to other countries. Yeah. On the other hand, particular in the US, we found investment boom because of the high demands and high market growth in Europe. Okay, there was an investment boom, the same as US, which lead also to the stock exchange crash. We all know Black Friday and the loss of assets. And it was the birth of the so-called German Mittelstand or Germany in Mittelstand. During the Second World War, we had new innovations in computer, nuclear power, color TV, etc. Yeah, but okay, we had the complete demoralization of the German economy, which was in the end, okay, also the backbone for the German economic mirror later. Yeah, and what was surprising, which you find women entrepreneurship was some of the biggest drivers also in entrepreneurship. Then we had the golden years. In this now we start here, more or less entrepreneurship in peacetime, the golden years of so-called market economies, international trade. Yeah, so we had here intensive entrepreneurial activities due to economic growth, investments, and the German economic miracle. Yeah, then we had also we had developments and further activities to build up social welfare and new possibilities. Then, okay, we had the foundation of the European Union or the predecessors for the European Union and development of international trade, and also the development of quality management which was also a result from the Vietnam War. Then we talked about the globalized economies, yes, up to the millennium, yeah. So we had the intensive activities to international investment, also necessity entrepreneurship due to high employment due to the globalization. Some industries went out and left unemployment, yeah. Increased living standards, yeah, new trade patterns due to glasnost and the opening of China, yeah. The development of threshold economies, so was fostering as well the globalization, and as well this was a period of innovation and entrepreneurship which just came up. Yeah, up to the war, we were talking in Europe more about European digital green economies. So we went over to digital business and models in green entrepreneurship, so also to cover for the effects of the climate change. Yeah, and also we had the first uncertainty in the breakup in the first prediction was Brexit. So what happened now? Yes, is the return of the Iron Curtain and trade barriers between the political system, the democracy and controlled market, autocratic controlled economies. Yeah. What is now new activities due to a changing world? Yes. So do we find now a boost to green entrepreneurship and value-driven entrepreneurship, in particular of the climate change and the energy? Yes. And certainly refugee entrepreneurship, which we also discovered as well from the people coming down from Syria, which in a way is some sort of a necessity entrepreneurship. So if you just look for the drivers of entrepreneurship in the first place, yeah, war and entrepreneurship, you can interpret in particular for women entrepreneurship. In the Second World War, it has been used to as a replacement for missing male entrepreneurs, but later also highly done with social business models or developing trade models. And as well necessity entrepreneurship, in particular for income generation of refugees, redesign of business models due to missing markets. So they were forced to generate something as well due to unemployment. The drivers later on for opportunity-driven entrepreneurship are coming in a second place. There we found in the construction the civil use of war innovation, economic growth due to social welfare and income, yeah, development of international trade, as well value-driven entrepreneurship to this one here. So what are the current developments in Europe, including Germany? Yeah. Before the war, I just placed it up and what were the drivers. So we had the global challenges, was climate change, artificial intelligence, migration from other countries. We're changing the world of mobility, yes, and we found also some protectionism. Yeah. Then we had here in Europe more models were based on sustainable thinking, 3 bottom lines, ethics also, to how we doing business and profits. So it was not any linear programming any longer between resources to make profit. It was also making resources and profit are added by the 3 bottom line to reflect, to keep sustainability, to keep the system alive. Yeah, and this meant also that there were coming up new opportunities in the way of mobility, material management, and biotechnology. And this was the new way of responsible entrepreneurship. What was now a new term coming up is saying, okay, we just want to leave also backwards some values. We also want to keep sustain income generation. Yeah, this was just the drivers of a new way of entrepreneurship. Yeah, so and these responsible entrepreneurship just came up for social entrepreneurship. Yeah, sustainability and as well as a picture of a honorable businessman which kept social responsibility and also setting personal standards of responsibility and values. If we have combined this one here, we find it currently in Germany, the current development in entrepreneurship. So we had the traditional entrepreneurship. This was just the linear combination of profit and growth on the grounds of resources and globalization. And now, okay, we have got 3 moments here which just are changing these developments. On the bottom line, we find the 3 pillars. This is why we were working in which I just marked these red triangles. Yeah. The first was COVID-19. Yeah, okay, there was a boost of digitalization, working models, and rural environments. And the second is now the war, which we just rethink now for independent energy supply, protectionism, as well, globalization, what is just coming up. So, and this just leads us much more to a more human and responsible entrepreneurship, which just means a combination still of profit and growth on the grounds of social and environmental responsibility. And what we find here at the moment is the word of resilience. So in all the current publication, all the current discussions I'm just doing, the first word is also resilience, to make our companies, to make entrepreneurship, to make small and medium small businesses resilient in terms of financial terms, also in terms of supplies and production. This is absolutely new at the moment. So this what just ends up here to this one here, the play and what is coming up. First of all, okay, we need to stop the war. So, but okay, for the Ukraine, and this what the world society, the work group is just coming up, is the international human and economic financial hub. That's what we did. We received that also here in Germany after the Second World, the so-called Marshall Plan. So we had the international finance recovery programs. In the end, we just all covered, supported this one here. We all had got one. The main thing is certainly the discussions going on that Ukraine in the first place will stay neutral. Yeah? They still need our access to international markets and access to the international markets without barriers. Yeah, and then okay, we need also supply international knowledge, because there are big fears that all the refugees were coming up down now to the other member states of the European Union, that there will happen maybe a possible brain drain, so that people, even if there are peace times back in the Ukraine, this infrastructure is destroyed, so that they may still stay here in these countries to make out of a living. And also in the Ukraine, they just need to rebuild themselves from scratch. Yeah, certainly, okay, we need geopolitical stability, and these are the demands of the current president on the borders of 1991. And also, certainly, we have the international obligation for the reconstruction of the entrepreneurial environment ecosystem. So this was basically the necessity, also these relationships up to which drive us for entrepreneurship. Yeah, the future topics which are just coming up in entrepreneurial research are certainly we need more to know what are the effects of war entrepreneurship, because as you could see, there's hardly any literature. We just have a few discussions about it, and I think it's a very interesting topic. Yeah. Certainly, also, we need a little bit more to know about economic resilience as a mission statement for entrepreneurship. In particular, small companies, they just need safe grounds for development. And this is also a lesson which we take out of COVID-19 as well from the war now. Yeah, how to make small companies stable, how to make them resilient from these shocks. Who knows what is coming up? And this just means also to focus on the new way of responsible and human entrepreneurship as such. Yeah, and I hope I can talk to you or discuss these things more with you also in Washington at the World Conferences. Yes. So Eamon was saying to me 30 minutes, so I kept it, I think, quite in time. So I'm opening for discussion. This is just my address here and okay, some selected literature. So this was just a very brief minute. And now I'm happy for your questions.
Hartmut, exceptional job, really well done, very comprehensive. You captured a lot of key points here. I'm going to start off with some questions, but I also would like to ask the audience, the participants here, to put their questions in the chat section as well. And I'll try to address them here as well. You know, war, Hartmut, is never good. You know, war kills people, kills innocent lives, and destroys economies, destroys people's futures. And what we're experiencing here with war is the effects that's going to be impacting generations to come here. And we all know this. We've learned it from history so many times that there's no good thing coming out of any war here. At the same time, as you mentioned in your slides here, war creates different types of innovations, both militarily, but also economically here. I want us to focus a little bit on the innovations that are coming out of, you know, wars in terms of the economy here. If you can share some examples of things you project to see that potentially can come out of this, that might be helpful to humanity, even though it's the worst time of humanity as we speak.
Biggest at the moment, which is coming up, is our drones, and so it will be more automatic driving in these things, because the drones are now the most powerful weapon and for defense in the Ukraine, and this is what Russia didn't expect. So we just come a lot up with mobility of drones, artificial driving, which come up, because the advantage of wars is that you can test things very quicker and easier, because a lot of administrative and regulative bans we have here in Germany or in Europe are just underpinned. And so these machines and this technology can be tested quicker. And this is just the advantage during war times. And that's what it makes it the development quicker. And in the end, it's just then can be used then later on for commercial use. And I think here we will find a very big a shift, a very big difference in once the war is over, and also a number of innovations in this area.
So drones, we can see a positive commercial use for drones in the future, and I agree with this. And I can tell you personally here that there are areas both in the United States and worldwide that are rural, that do not have access to what the stores or the providers can provide in cities, and small or big. But drones can be a solution to those living in the suburbs or out and about. It takes a long time to get what they need here. Drones can be a nice way of getting them the products and services that is needed. Let me give you an example. You mentioned drones, which I can think of. Imagine a family that is living, you know, 10, 12 miles away from the closest pharmacy, okay? And at night, one of the kids gets a fever, right? And technically what should happen is that they'll have to drive there. The pharmacy may be open or not open, but yet with drones, they can actually get the medicine quicker and faster because of that delivery system. especially if the roads are not well paved or dark at night. So drones can be a positive thing. What other example you can think of
I
aside from
think
drones?
of 3D productions. So, for example, either in food or also in machinery or spare parts. So where we find here as well, okay, also it's military weapons, a lot of spare parts and other things are produced in 3D models. And this, I think, will just increase as well, so that production will be just being let down to local and industries, local enterprises, and this will be changing quite a bit. And so this is what next type of things.
Yes, absolutely, 3D production as well. Let's talk a little bit about how do you see, after war, how do you see the entrepreneurship research evolving in terms of, what we've just experienced with war? How do you see entrepreneurship research pivoting or looking into war as a means of more research that can help society and humanity?
Okay, the research, entrepreneurship research will just being done, of course, as I said, okay, resilience. Yes, how we need to rebuild our ecosystem. Maybe have to rethink as well about what we are expecting from our business model, as well about the management. Because here, as I said earlier, yeah, we were talking a lot of time about stock taking. Stocks were just threatened in recent manager literature as poison. Yeah, now, okay, we just come back to old-fashioned management. So we take up stock because it's just making more safer. The next bit is certainly about energy. And then this is just means then, okay, also value-driven, because we have got here now two systems and two values just coming up. Yeah, and this is just also driven. So what we want to do in our social values, in particular also environmental values, to maintain sustainability, to maintain energy in this one here. These are one of the major economic challenges, and this will also guide us in entrepreneurship. Yeah. Also trade patterns, how we can redesign and design trade patterns and globalization and the collaboration of entrepreneurship and small business. Yes, and this means also what is the role of international institutions to support entrepreneurship into many countries is one of other issues we need to talk about it. But particularly, okay, with what we said here is this responsibility to make our systems resilient and stable. And that's what I discovered as well here in a lot of discussion with my students here, because they were just thinking about it, because we just neglected now areas, yes, which they just fearing quite well. It's about the climate change at the moment, and as well as a big threat of developing countries. And we need also to focus not to lose an eye on these issues.
Excellent answer. I'm going to open it up for other questions. If you have any other questions, just please put them into the chat section here, and we'll answer in here. Hartmut, one thing that's happening here that we talked about, that's war that's happening in there, but there's a lot of immigration. Almost, I think 4 million people went out of Ukraine and went to other countries as well. That changes the ecosystems of these other countries as well, because those people that are going there are highly skilled labor, are doctors, are engineers, are entrepreneurs as well. What's your thoughts about those people going to the other countries? Even though if it's a short period of time, there's still an impact that will happen to these economies as well.
Okay, first of all, we have it here as well, in particular in the healthcare system. They just keep solve in a way our labor shortages, and there are high investments and high initiatives also by most of the companies at the moment to make them stay here, to allow them to stay here so that they just can work for long term here. And this is just now the big danger, because if you want to have in the end of the war to rebuild the Ukraine, yeah, they won't have they're missing out this skilled labor. and they just won't return not for instance, because they haven't got any living environment. They have got no safety, no medicine, no schools and everything, no universities. Yeah, so there's a high yes, for us it's maybe, if we just place it correctly, a very big chance for Germany, France, and most of the European countries, or Poland, to stay there. But this is just now the big problem, on long-term problem for the Ukraine, to get those people back, these leading people, the thinking people. Yeah, at the moment, they only hear the wives and daughters and the children, because the men are still fighting in their home countries. But one day, if the war is ending, and we're still thinking here in Europe that it will come to an end a few times, okay, however these peace negotiations and taken forward in Turkey, but then the fathers will join their wives and kids here in Germany or the other European countries. They won't return. Yeah, if you see the pictures of these cities, they are just gone. There's nothing, and this will take many years to rebuild the state, to motivate those people also return to their country.
Yeah. You mentioned in your presentation earlier, and you talked about it a couple of times here, the term responsible entrepreneurship. Okay. Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about this, because more than ever we need responsible entrepreneurship. Can you explain a little bit in your own words, what do you mean by responsible entrepreneurship?
Well, responsible entrepreneurship is just being a term which has been created here in Germany, or at least in Europe, as a value-driven entrepreneurship. Yes, so it is just based on the sustainability, which means, okay, to replace things, to maintain systems, to this one here. So it is just doesn't mean to use resources only for own profit making, income generation, but also to think a step further. What I will do in the end, take off the society, and what will one day I will give back to the society, so that our kids and the next generation still have also resources to live on, to have a world to live on, and so that it makes it fair. And this old picture has been replaced, coming down also from the honorable businessman, and this was a streamline which just came down also to the social economic system, which just means also a fair competition to this one here, competition on performance, a competition on performance, and a competition on just missing the word, it doesn't matter. And this was just we lost the focus on it, so it was just too much quick growth, quick profit maximization, and this is just being done. So what I will give back to the society, what will be the benefit of my entrepreneurial activities also of the society? So it's just, okay, the exchange of the society, which just focuses in the activities rather than on the pure income generation. And this is what drives a lot of people here in Germany or in Europe.
I think it's a great concept. I think it's much needed today than ever, and for us to be responsible and responsible in many things, including trying to end these conflicts, but also we have to be responsible for the planet, for the climate, for diversity and equity, and so many things that are pressing us from everywhere here. And it takes all of us to come together. I want to leave the last comments to you here. As we move forward, and hopefully this ends soon here, right? What is one of the two main lessons, you may say, or insights that you can take from war and entrepreneurship? I know you started this conversation with me, and a month or so ago said that we need to look into this and do a webinar, and then we wrote an article on it. But what's your thoughts? What's your insight on this as we move forward?
We just move forward that all of a sudden, okay, the entrepreneurial spirit is just coming up so quickly. We were just here in Europe as well, were fading away. We were discussing too many minors. We lost the focus on the main thing. And all of a sudden, yeah, the main thing were coming back. And this was, okay, we just need to have a safe world. Also the importance of the European Union is just coming back. Because I happen to be also president of a twin town between Germany and France. And all of us, and this was also something which just, yeah, faded away. The gist out of it faded away. When all of a sudden people just thought, no, the European Union and the European idea is one of the biggest and best ideas we ever had, yeah? So why they didn't do it here also in Russia? They wanted to form a former Soviet Union. So why they just built up something similar of a common market in the Eastern Europe? This was just the idea. So and the reunification and the driving forces of European Union, this is just very, very strong. And all of a sudden, yeah, people also, all the nations just worked very, very closely together. Also the alliance between Europe and US and so on. All of a sudden it went down to one string, yeah. We didn't have it for years, yes. And now we have clear voices. And this is just what astonished me at the moment.
I agree. I agree that we sometimes lose focus on the most important things. And maybe one good thing that comes out of this horrible events that are happening is that we prioritize what we should be focusing on. And with that, Hartmut, this has been a wonderful both webinar and podcast here. We'll be sharing it with all of the ICSB network worldwide here. I want to personally thank you for your time and dedication in putting these slides together. And then I look forward to seeing you soon, I guess, as well. And also we want to welcome you to Washington, DC for the ICSB World Congress. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much. And thank you much for giving me the opportunity to talk about this topic. It was a hard.
Thank you. Wonderful. Bye, Hartmut. Bye-bye.
Bye.